Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of James Lott Jr. is the farmer, and Jack Farmer is what? The DJ. I'm James Lott Jr., and he's Jack Farmer. Yes.
And I'm Jack Farmer.
Hi, Jack Farmer.
Hey, James. Thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure to be here. Always exciting.
Yes, I love talking to you, especially about music.
Yeah, we were just talking beforehand, though. Where we live, there's like a windstorm coming through. It's like a tsunami or whatever. I don't know what the different windstorm names are, but it's coming through so hard. It's coming through so crazy. I hope our power doesn't go out. I don't know, man. Last night, just so you know, I got no sleep last night. We have a skylight where I live, and it started coming undone, and it was like flapping, and it kept whenever the wind would get under it, it'd slam like a door slamming in my house. So all night last night, it was like boom, boom, boom.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
But we had a handyman come by and he fixed it up and it's all good now. But my heart was jumping all night. So
I'm sure that is not good. I was tell you, so Jack, it's not a tsunami because that's water.
Oh.
It's like a tornado force winds.
Yes.
Your tornado.
I don't know if they're quite that hard, but they're pretty hard. It's like 25, 35 miles an hour,
I
think.
I almost fell over. I was outside. I almost fell over, and I'm 250 pounds. Still there. I was like, oh my God. I was in Torrance this morning. I was like, oh my God, that's crazy.
I was thinking if I had a kite today, I'd be doing pretty good.
You would. Actually, you would. But here's another, folks. If you're flying into LAX right now, it's horrible because the turbulence. To be like, the winds.
Oh man, I can see planes coming down from my bedroom window, and I was thinking to myself, because I get nervous with turbulence, and so I was like, geez, I was like nervous for them as they were coming in. I was like, oh, this is not good. They are not having a good time.
They're not.
But from everything I've heard, the pilot's like, yeah, whatever, it's fine, it's no big deal. It's like when we're driving and we're hitting like bumps in the road.
Jack. I don't know. I'm in the air. There's no road underneath me. It's clouds and shit. I don't know. People say whatever. Because I'm not afraid of crashing. I'm afraid of turbulence. I don't like turbulence. It's just unsettling.
Yeah, you and I are in the same boat then. Honestly, everyone's like, oh, I don't like landing or taking off. That part's fine. It's for me, it's the shaking in the air. And I know it's fine. I've done all the research. I know it's no big deal. But in my brain and in my head, I can't separate it. When I'm in the air, I'm still freaking out. It's just how I am.
Me too. Me too. You're not like it at all. All right, so folks, talking about grunge today. We're talking about grunge. Each of these next Mondays, we're picking a group. And grunge is the topic tonight. Now I'm going to read the Oxford Dictionary definition of this.
Okay.
Grunge. Well, first, grime or dirt.
Yes.
Number 2, a style of rock music characterized by the raucous guitar sound and lazy vocal delivery. Lazy vocal delivery. Lazy vocal. How do you feel about that, Jack Farmer?
Lazy vocal delivery. I guess I kind of see where they're coming from. I don't know if that's it seems like a kind of a disrespectful way to say it, but
right.
I get what they're saying, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like, again, maybe I date myself. I feel like hip hop today is lazy vocal delivery because they mumble and things like that. But I guess I get what they're saying, but I don't know. Some of them have great voices and some of them are giving it a lot of energy. I don't know if lazy is the right word, but I think I get what they're saying. I'll give it a pass.
I'm the only band, and I love this band very much, but the only band I'm thinking of that the delivery could possibly be Allison Chains, maybe, because I think they have a slow kind of. I mean, between Lane and Jerry Cantrell, it kind of is like it's not super upbeat vocal delivery, I guess. Smashing Pumpkins was kind of not super upbeat in the beginning. I mean, I guess.
But yeah, even Jerry Cantrell though, like you can hear it in his voice. So he's like doing something. He's like, "I'm the man." Like he's got like a thing in his voice. He's doing something. He's not just like, "I'm the man in the box." Like, you know.
I don't think it's like lazy. That's lazy. Hello, you guys. Hello, Demo. Yeah, so that's kind of a weird. But every time I do a show, I read the definitions because I think it's hilarious.
I think it's funny. The idea that Oxford Dictionary has a definition of grunge is so anti-grunge music in and of itself. It feels
exactly. Exactly, you got it exactly. No, Kurt Cobain would not be happy.
No.
The years that it was popular was 1990, 97. Then they call it post-punk after that. So Creed and those Nickelback come out. That's another story.
With arms wide open. We were going to do a show on Creed and Nickelback.
If you want a show where I'm just like crapping on them the whole hour, then sure, Jack, we'll do that. I mean, I have no problem. Or like Google Doll. I mean, this band like just can't do it.
We did. A buddy and I did a karaoke Nickelback song once, and it did not go over well with the crowd. What was their song? It doesn't matter. We all know the Nickelback song.
Yeah, the big.
We did that song, and it was it did not go over. It was a we were just trying to get a stir out of the crowd, and we got it.
I'm sure you did. But it's so funny because they were huge. I mean, they were huge. Creed was huge. Creed gets stuff because Homeboy became a douche later or whatever. He was a douche or whatever. But they were huge bands that a lot of sales. I just couldn't take their music. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. But they considered post-grunge.
Yeah. They're those bands that like someone was buying their albums. No one admitted it, but someone was buying those songs.
They were apparently. I mean, they were making them. Yeah, they're making them. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, but they said it started in the mid '80s. And some of the early bands like Sonic Youth and Pixies and all that kind of influenced them. So that was good.
I have a question for you if I can jump in when it comes to starting, because I was thinking about this, because depending on where you look, they say like it started in the 80s or the 90s or whatever. My question to you is, do you count a genre starting when it gets popular, or like do you have to go back to the very first person that ever did it? Because I feel like maybe it's just because of my age, but I didn't feel like it was really big until the 90s either. But of course, there's all these influences and things, and people say, "Oh, it started in the '80s and things like that." But I was like, "Did it really though?" Like,
I go the route of when it first started, not popularity. I think rap started literally in the late '70s, kind of. Sugar Hill Gang was the first kind of hit. Blondie '81 was the second hit, but then they became popular later. But I feel like that's when it first started. It just wasn't popular. Punk started in the mid '70s, didn't get popular until the late '70s, kind of early '80s. So I always go by when it first started. I will say when it first started, and then differentiate that in the popular years were these.
Right.
Disco, I guess the first disco song they said was like maybe 73, 74, but it became popular late '70s. That was when it was in its heyday. So I guess to answer your question, I would go from where it starts. Like, I'm much more of a historian anyway. I'll go from where it starts, but then also say this is the years it really was popular.
See, that's probably better why you're the historian. See, I'm selfish. I'm like, it didn't start till I heard about it. That's once I heard about it, then it started. Before that, it doesn't even count.
Once it entered my consciousness, then it was real. So it was real. Yeah. It didn't matter if I heard it before you did. It didn't matter. It's like when a tree falls in the forest, if I'm not there, no one hears it.
Yeah. Did you know that Earth and me are the exact same age?
Let's count your rings. Yes. Exactly. That's funny, Jack. Okay. So yes. So K Records, Olympia, Sub Pop, and those are like the nucleus of where a lot of the grunge stuff started. We're gonna get to this talk, of course. I'm gonna ask Jack, of course, because he's from there.
Yeah.
His collections. But the top grunge seller, this is by sales. It's not by popularity. This is by sales.
Okay.
It's interesting stuff. Number 8 is Mudhoney.
Okay.
Number 7 is Mother Love Bone.
Okay.
This one surprised me. Number 6 is Screaming Trees. You know they sold that much. I know. Number 5 is Temple the Dog, which is, of course, the super group.
Right.
There's several groups together. Number 4 is Soundgarden.
That makes sense.
Number 3 with the most number 1 albums out of the whole group, Allison Chains.
Interesting.
I know.
Interesting. Really? The most number 1 album?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. That surprises me. Yeah. No disrespect to them. I never thought of them as being like the hit machines.
No, that's the whole point. No one does. Because they're eclipsed by the top 2, of course, I'm about to mention. They're eclipsed by them.
Right.
And they kept putting out number 1 album. Like, I'm actually
surprised they outsold Soundgarden. That is interesting.
I know.
I'm pretty sure I know who number 1 and number 2 is. I'm curious what order they're in, though.
Well, then I'm going to ask you what order you think they're in.
I'm going to say by sales, I'm going to say it's interesting because I have a feeling Nirvana peaked higher, but I think Pearl Jam probably has the longer run. So I'm trying to figure. I'm going to say I think Pearl Jam is number 1.
That's your final answer.
That's my final answer.
You are correct. Nirvana's number 2. Pearl Jam's number 1. Pearl Jam had more albums they released than Nirvana.
Right. And yeah, I bet if you looked at the sales chart, Nirvana was way higher during a period, but then because Pearl Jam kept going and kept selling and kept making music.
Well, the number 1 selling grunge album is Nevermind, obviously.
Right.
But number 2 followed really closely behind 10 by Pearl Jam. They're very close.
Yeah, Pearl Jam, I don't think gets a lot of credit for how big they were at the time. I think they get, because Nirvana was so big, and of course, because Kurt Cobain was the star of the grunge music, and because of the way he passed away and everything else, he became such an icon that it sort of overshadowed everything else. But Pearl Jam was right up there with them.
Yeah, 10 and Vitalogy, the 1-2 punch first 2 albums, they were really huge. I mean, sales-wise, they sold a lot. And I remember how big they were just personally because I bought the CDs when they came out. I remember how big they were and how, but then he started to diversify. Pearl Jam decided, because Eddie Vedder was like, I don't want to be a star either. I don't want to be another guy. And started doing started doing all these stuff. I mean, I saw him at the Dependent Freedom concert. I saw him all these different things, doing all these ecological stuff. They started releasing albums, just releasing them. They're releasing their live stuff. I have a bunch of their live bootlegs. They were not bootleg, obviously, but they come out. But they started kind of diversifying where Nirvana had big album, they died.
Right.
Big album, and then the live album. Right. But it's like they kind of did these, like, they're almost like Michael Jackson. They're like the event.
Yes.
They were the event. Where all the other bands were overshadowed by that, actually. What's interesting for them, Kurt became the star.
Yeah, he was, which so ironic. He was the one that didn't want to be the star. Of all people, the one who didn't want to, but that fed in so well to what grunge music is, right? Like the fact that the biggest star of grunge was the guy that didn't want to be the biggest star at all. He didn't want that lifestyle. Is exactly like, it fits exactly what grunge is, really. And I think that just made things bigger for him. He is such a rock star, Kurt Cobain, just in the sense that, I mean, he didn't care. He didn't care about anyone else. He just wanted to do his music. If you look at any of that, like unplugged stuff and like how that whole thing went, and he was just like, I'm doing my thing, man. I don't care that this is a huge deal for MTV. I'm a rock star, whatever. He was such a rock star. And the fact that he didn't want it, I think made him all the more iconic. Again, especially because it was that kind of music. I don't know if that would pay off if you were a pop star. You would just sound like a jerk. But with grunge, it was like, that's exactly what grunge is the guy that doesn't want to be a star.
You said it correctly. I mean, I think because it was grunge, because that was for me, and I'm gonna ask about your opinion. I mean, what it meant for you. For me, they were my age. Kurt was my age. This was my generation, Gen X. We were the slacker. We were called slackers. So you think millennials had problems? We were called slackers. Trying to find ourselves. And I was living in Sacramento at the time, where it was very granola. I went to Cal State Chico, very granola. And I was wearing flannel and all the crap and all that stuff. My hair was long and all that stuff. I did all that. And so it totally spoke to me. I mean, it really did. And it was funny because then the hip hop at that time too, which was the conscious rap, I call it, which was Queen Latifah, Moni Love, Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest. They're all, both of them, they were saying the same stuff. And that's what they actually got along for a while. It was all against screw hair metal, which I did love my hair metal. It did die. It died. All the frivolous stuff of the 80s literally just died. I mean, it was like now we're in the 90s. We have Mercury in the Water, and also this was all about that now. And so I remember it really, Kurt Cobain spoke to me. And when he died, my friends will tell you, that was one of the few deaths that affected me very hard. I cried for days. I was depressed. When that live Unplugged from New York came out, I played it to death. My roommate to this day will tell you, oh my God, I played it to death over and over. I was just like, I was depressed for like at least a couple of months over his death. because he stood up for gay rights, he stood up for Black rights, he stood up for women's rights. He was such a rock star, anti-rock star, rock star.
Right.
He wore dresses on stage. Sometimes he felt like it. I mean, he just did what he wanted, and he really wanted. It was about the music. It was literally about trying to craft some great songs, and which we'll get into a little later. They did some great songs. So you're right. So that's for me personally. I just turned 21 in 1990. I could drink legally. I could drink legally. I can, I was voting and all these things. I was living on my own. I had an apartment at the time. Then I got a roommate and I had jobs. It was literally my time period. So I always look at grunge and conscious rap at that time period. I look at them both and go, that was my coming of age year, so to speak. So for you were young, much younger, obviously. What was your recognition of grunge? And you were up there in Northwest.
Yeah, when Kurt Cobain died, he was the first like celebrity death that really hit me. That was like, wow, the celebrities die. Celebrities, like, he's not really dead though. You're right. Like, this is a thing. Like, it was that was the first time I was like, wow, even like as silly as it sounds to say out loud, especially as I'm older, like, wow, famous people die. Famous rich people die. Like, he killed himself. Why would he kill himself? He had everything. He was great. I don't get it, because back then too, it's weird to think about, maybe again my age, but like the idea of people being depressed seemed like it's very rare and weird thing that didn't happen. Like, you didn't think people were depressed. Like, that was a weird thing. And so to find out like he was depressed, so he killed himself. It was a very weird thing to figure out and learn about that way at that point in my life. I mean, now if it happened, where I guess maybe I'm just more aware of it, or society's more aware of it, but like, it was very weird for me. And I still remember the Rolling Stone cover of his face. That is like an iconic Rolling Stone cover now. And we had that in our house, and it was, we always got Rolling. We were a Rolling Stone family. We always got the magazine, but that one was one of those ones that was out for a long time, like it was always on the coffee table for a long time. And yeah, I mean, he was just like, his style was cool, the sunglasses he would wear, and the the hair that looks like he put shampoo in it but didn't rinse the shampoo out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. It was he was someone, obviously, again, a fashion icon in a lot of ways. It's so funny, as someone from the Pacific Northwest, he was his fashion caught on, but for people in the Pacific Northwest, the way he dressed was really just logical when you lived in the Northwest, where it's rainy and cold. Like, flannels you wear because it's rainy and cold. You wear combat boots because it's wet outside, and you got to wear shoes that you can wear outside, Right. And so it was, but at the same time, I remember being all about that style. I remember I had a flannel, and I would want to wear flannels even in the summer when it was hot, because I thought it was cool. Looking back, I'm like, Jack, you were a dummy. Just put on a t-shirt.
Jack, we did the same thing. Trust me, we did the same thing. We did the same thing.
But yeah, his music was great. Smells Like Teen Spirit, obviously, is still something you can play today and people will rock out to it. But a lot of his music, as I've gotten older, even you can tell he's not just writing lyrics. Like, you can feel the words and you can feel what he's doing. And like I said, really just an artist and a rock star in every sense of the word.
It's funny you bring up Smells Like Teen Spirit. So when that video came out on MTV, and I remember I saw it, didn't understand the word he was saying at first. I'm like, a burrito, a what? A mosquito? What's he saying? Albino. But the sound sounded interesting to me, because I was a heavy music person. I was DJing at the time, part-time. Also was reading Billboard magazine every week. I'm still into music, but I was hugely into music. Like, this sounds kind of familiar to me. And then I saw an interview, and he said the Pixies, the whole loud, soft sound.
Mm-hmm.
I recorded a song last year, which I'm releasing this year, called Lost and Found, which we copied that too, where it's hard and loud, then soft. Hard and loud, then soft. And that's something that's not done very often. It's usually, there may be a key change here and there, or a sound change, but not like that usually. And I thought, this song is just really cool. I used to like the Pixies, of course. And many of the Pixies later Breeders and Belly, they all became groups in the grunge movement later. The Chicks, especially the Deals, Kim and Kelly. But I thought this is very interesting. The song is super catchy for not understanding what the F he's saying. It's very catchy. And I was like, I think that song knocked Michael Jackson's Dangerous off the charts. It's like the number one. It's like something because of course, Michael Jackson was huge still back then. But then all of a sudden, this new guy came in. You didn't see his face really in the video. You're like, what's going on? Girls in pom poms. It's kind of dark, but you're like intrigued. The video was perfect. The video was a perfect introduction. This is their second album. This wasn't even their first album. It was their second album. Bleach was the first album, but it wasn't popular. And then seeing the cover of the album with that naked baby going for the dollar bill, just said everything. It says everything about Nirvana.
Yes. So much stuff to unpack there. First off, I like how you mentioned the loud and then soft, the loud and then soft. I kind of learned something about myself. James, I talk in a loud and then in a soft voice a little bit. I kind of do that. I maybe there's a small unintentional influence there because I like to get loud and then I'll tell you I talk a little bit quieter sometimes.
You do talk like that, yeah. Okay. So
I wonder if there's a subliminal influence there somewhere. But as far as that video goes, probably one of the most iconic videos of all time. I mean, obviously Thriller is the iconic video, but it was so cool how they took this preppy, the opposite of what grunge is, this preppy schoolyard thing, but then it had a grunge filter put over it. It was like Stranger Things, the upside down, except grunge instead of the upside down, where it was just dirty and gross and it just and rock and everyone's moshing. And I'll tell you, man, in the right situation, that song still pops off if you play it.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be the right crowd, obviously, but every now and again you slide that one in there and people will start they'll get jumping around. It's a good time. But and of course that album cover with the baby, one of the most iconic album covers, I would think. I haven't put thought into that, but I mean it
is.
It has to be.
Yeah, I think they showed the baby as an adult recently, I think.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, your little penis is showing on a video. I mean, on the album. How's that feel? You're a baby. And say something like, I was a baby. I don't know.
Right.
But I think it was considered one of the most iconic album.
But now as an adult looking back, obviously the symbolism of the baby chasing the dollar is such a cool thing.
Oh, completely. Nirvana was, and a lot of these groups were very smart that way. They took real life situations and they're very clever in their delivery. Nirvana, of course, In Utero, the next album, Heart Shaped Box. I love that video. I love that song. I was just playing it before we came on. And they just, you listen to the lyrics. I mean, all that's like Come As You Are, Lithium. I mean, there's so many songs that are just like, even the Rape Me song. You hear the word rape me, but you understand there's some deep lyrics in there. Like, you have to listen to the lyrics. Yes, they made them change it to something for radio or whatever, but there's some actual deep lyrics in there, and so that there was always this kind of cleverness, especially to Nirvana's music, and a lot of the others too. It was very clever. Another iconic video, of course, is Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden. That video is scary. I was like, that video is so weird. The commentary in it.
Yes, that video is another one of the most iconic videos probably of all time. There's probably a lot of the iconic videos around that time because I feel like that's when MTV was really chugging. Like it was doing some really good stuff then. Real quick, Come As You Are, by the way, the theme of the city of Aberdeen, Washington, where Nirvana's from, where Kurt Cobain's from. Come As You Are, it says on the sign outside of the city. So fun little
my little factoid. I didn't know that.
Factoid there.
Yeah.
Soundgarden, I loved. I really like them. They were a lot. I think when you look at the different types of, they talk about it's kind of punk and metal mixed together. I felt like they were more closer to the metal side of things. But Black Hole Sun, that video, that terrifying video where their eyes would get big and like that. Oh, it was so, and they were all doing weird stuff. Not weird stuff, I guess, just the way it was presented was weird. Well, some of it was weird, but it was a very unsettling video. And it fit the song just perfectly. Like it almost felt like they made the video and then wrote the song to fit the video.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly.
Which is probably why it's such an iconic video. But they had so many good songs. Soundgarden. Chris Cornell has a great voice. He's the first person I thought of when you said lazy vocals. I was thinking, well, Chris Cornell doesn't have a lazy vocal approach to things. But yeah, I love Black Hole Sun. I loved Spoon Man. I always thought it was fun. It was a fun because it's like a bit faster. I like a lot of the faster songs. So I definitely love Spoon Man and even their later stuff like Burden in My Hand and that album as well. So I love Soundgarden.
Speaking of that, I'll tell you, I saw them at Lollapalooza in 95 or 96. I think it was 96. It was them, Metallica. Well, I loved Metallica at the time. It was them, Metallica, Devo.
Interesting.
I know, crazy. It was interesting. There was a whole bunch of just interesting bands that came there. But
Devo had a little revival in the 90s, didn't they? Is that what it was? Yeah, Whip It got popular again for some reason. I can't remember why.
For some reason, I can't remember what it was. I can't remember why either. It did.
Yeah.
But they rocked out, actually. It wasn't even like they were... it wasn't like... It was they actually rocked. I mean, they were new wave. They're very new wave, but they actually really rocked. And folks may not understand this, but the lead guy, he does a lot of movie soundtracks and TV soundtracks now. He does a lot of stuff. A lot of those guys went on to other things. They had the big hits and went on to other stuff. But Freedom of Choice, Whip It, always say there's just so many great songs, but they rocked out at Lollapalooza. I mean, that was my first Lollapalooza I went to. But Chris Cornell to me was one of my favorite voices of all time. I was sad when he killed himself a few years ago. I was sad too. And see, with him, I thought he had like a soulful voice. I thought his voice had some soul in it, and I added to all the songs. And then later, when he went solo, I even liked his album with Timberland. I have it. There's like all these songs. I tried to do R&B. I know it flopped, but I play some songs still now to this day. And if you guys don't know this, he did a James Bond theme, and I was just about to say
it's one of my favorites. You Know My Name.
You know my name, exactly my favorites. Yes.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite James Bond themes. It's also like, it's just cool. It's cool. Like, cause you do know James Bond's name. It's just, and I've mentioned this before on our show and I've talked about this before, but he definitely has one of those voices that you feel it. It's not just a good voice. You feel his voice. He's not just saying I'm using my tool well. He's like, okay, I got to go find the emotion that this is supposed to connect to and pull that out with it when I sing. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why he stood out. And yeah, it was really sad that he passed away recently, because it was only a few years ago. Actually, time starts going fast. Yeah. Maybe it wasn't recently. I feel like it was just a few years ago, but maybe it was like 10 years ago.
Well, because it was right after Chester Bennington. It was on Chester Bennington's either his birthday or his anniversary of his death. I'm gonna look at right next. I want to say it's only been. Well, you're right. Time goes by fast. Chris Cornell. So he passed away.
And with 2020, it feels like
2017.
2017. Okay, so it was just a few years ago.
It was a few years ago. Yeah.
That was. Because 2020 was worth at least 4 years, though. That's why it feels like it was a long time ago.
That's true too. I forgot he went on to Audio Slave. I remember Audio Slave. And of course, he was the lead singer of Temple of the Dog. Chat room. Jack is a little grunge too. Yes, like Nirvana and most music videos back in the day, there were many movies with high production value and bigger budgets. My favorite Nirvana video is Heart Shaped Box. That's mine too. The videos back then, they had. I remember when the Little B Girl. That video was huge by that.
Blind Melon.
Blind Melon. That was like they actually took. I feel like they actually took really sat back and said, let's make a video that's very interesting to present. Yeah. And a lot of now Pearl Jam, mind you, didn't like doing videos, folks. They have very few videos. They had that one for Jeremy, I think, and Daughter. I think they can have an animated video. They did very little video. They always hits.
They did have an animated video. What was the animated video?
I can't remember. Okay, I'll look it up.
That was. It's so funny. If you had not mentioned that, I never would have remembered for the rest of my life that they had an animated video. But now that you've said it, I know it was there. But that's interesting. I didn't know they didn't like doing videos, but you're right. They didn't. Now that I think about it, they didn't have a lot.
they had hits, but they didn't have a lot of videos. And then because Eddie Vedder thought was part. See, again, it was that a part of the machine. It's part of the machine. And you said earlier, grunge was about being anti-establishment. That was the whole point. And let's see. Okay, it was for Do the Evolution. That's what it was.
Oh, that's right. Do the Evolution. I forgot about that song.
From Yield in 1998. Another big album for them. Yes. Yes.
But how ahead of its time was the music video for Jeremy, though? Because that came out before all the big school shootings were happening. And
yes,
here we are today. At least I wasn't aware of big school shootings all the time until that.
I wasn't either. There was before that. No, there was. And subject of guns was very interesting because Aerosmith put out that video, Janie's Got a Gun, too, about, being attacked, going back to her abuse or whatever. It's like these things they really were ahead of their time. They weren't, and then rock had touched these subjects. It was very interesting too. And these male bands, Aerosmith, you're talking Steven Tyler. I mean, and they got sensitive, man. They went sensitive. And the videos reflected that. I mean, they really did that. But back to Chris Cornell, I was a huge fan. I'm sad. I got to see him in concert, thank God. And I'm just very sad that again, going to another group, another guy who died also because of drugs and shit. Allison Chains, as I said earlier, most #1 albums. I loved Allison Chains. I loved the 2-part harmonies of the two of Jerry and Scott. Lane. And I really, I'm not thinking of something from Pirates with Scott Whelan. They all died. They're all dead, except for Jerry Cantrell. He's alive, but they're all dead. Yeah. But I love their 2-part. I mean, I love Rooster. And I love.
Yes. I'm so glad you said Rooster. Thank you.
That's the song. That to me, and No Excuses is one of my favorite songs. I played Dirt to death. That album was #1. I played it to death. I mean, I played a lot. I played Jar of Flies to death. I mean, I'm a huge Allison Chains fan.
I have a buddy, one of my best friends growing up. His name is Josh Schuster, and we started calling him Rooster because Schuster sounds like rooster.
Yes.
And so, we just because of that song, and so he had a nickname the rest of his life called Rooster, just because his last name sounded like.
There you go. That's so funny. No, I thought that their delivery, their music, clever lyrics. Just so good. I mean, another one is that just really, but again, I feel like they were unsung compared to some of the others. I feel like the others were more outrageous. They weren't outrageous. They were just like, we're a band. Here we go.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised that they were the number 3 highest selling grunge band. That really shocks me. Like, because I said, again, no disrespect to them. Because like you said, it feels like the other bands were just bigger. But I think that's probably longevity. It's probably I don't know I'm not looking at their sales figures, but I would bet that they were one of those bands that was like at number 5 forever, as opposed to being at number 1 for 3 weeks or whatever.
Right. Right.
And so that's probably what the difference is. But yeah, even him, like you talk about the lazy vocals, that I'm the man in the box. Like he's going. It's slow, but it's it feels like he's stressing that vocal cord just a little bit.
We don't like dictionary. We don't like your lazy vocal delivery thing. I don't understand what that means.
Yeah, Oxford, I think your definition's lazy. How do you like that?
Yeah, there you go. That's right. We think your definition is lazy. So we think here at James and Jack Farmer, we think it's lazy.
But yeah, those guys were great. And again, it's so funny. Like so many of these songs. So the radio station I used to always listen to growing up was 107.7 The End, and they were the radio station that sort of first started playing a lot of like Nirvana and stuff, and they became popular for a long time. They got really popular because they were the radio station that they worked at on The Real World in the Seattle season. But
that's right. Oh my God, that's right. Oh my God, that's so funny. Yes.
Yeah, I used to
Real World Seattle.
Yeah, I used to listen to them all the time, and I feel like so many of these are like the soundtrack to me, like growing up. So, or at least like for like the not growing up, like not like when I was 2, but like like when you're finally out in the world doing stuff, growing up, so it's it's like I love all of these. It's funny, even if I didn't like them, there'd be that part of me that's like I like them because it reminds me of the old days,
Yes, it's funny because we had called radio stations in Sacramento that played them. I can't remember the name of the station at this point, but I remember they used to play them, and it was the grunge station, and there was an alternative station too, which they started to bleed onto there because then grunge in the beginning was this weird nebulous part. It's like, okay, so the first Smashing Pumpkins album was kind of grungy, I guess. So they put it on there. Some REM, which were college radio at the time, an alternative became a little grungy. They're playing, so they're starting to meld them together, kind of. I remember that was happening. And when we played, I had a '90 Ford Escort, and I was just driving around in Sacramento, and I pressed the stations, and I pressed the stations. That it was like, oh, okay. They're starting to blend in the sounds, and they're calling things grunge, and I was like, so I guess they're grunge. I guess I don't know. This is grunge, and so there are a lot of bands that didn't go popular that he played too. That just like they threw them in there. But I want to mention Stone Temple Pilots because they're one of my other favorite groups. I used to love Vaseline, Bang Bang Baby. I mean, they had a bunch of songs that, and again, Scott Weiland, another guy who died from drugs and hard living, but another talented vocalist, Interstate Love Song. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that they put out that was a hit. That again, they weren't always number one, but they were again consistently putting out great albums.
Yeah, they are one of those groups that when you name a few songs, you're like, oh yeah, they had a couple songs. But then when you if you go to Spotify and you look at the list of all their songs, you're like, wow, they had a ton of songs that were great. I was a big fan. Like when The Crow came out, I loved Big Empty when it came out.
Yes.
And of course, Interstate Love Song, even though that was more, it kind of had a little country twang to it a little bit. But it's funny, when he passed away, it was really sad, but it's this interesting memory for me in that, I can't remember why, but I like that night I was at a bar and, I can't remember why I was like killing time before like a football game or something. I was like, I was there and there's a bunch of strangers there and we didn't know who each other were. But some guy goes over and he like puts money in a jukebox and he plays like a Stone Temple Pilots song because he's like, hey, he passed away, man. I love this song. And before I knew it, I had spent like 3 hours and we just kept putting in, quarters to play different songs. Like, oh yeah, this song. And a bunch of strangers were all bonding over Stone Temple Pilots songs and like one Velvet Revolver song because it was his voice. But,
Revolver, of course, yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't them as much, but I did. It was cool. It was cool.
They had their one song that came out that was pretty big is on my workout playlist. Set Me Free. That's what that was. Oh yeah, it's a good work. It's a good workout song, like because it's got like a pump up. But yeah, so many of their songs are so good. And it was like I said, it's one I never thought I didn't know any of them when I came in. Don't know any of their names now, but like we all shared this like moment, or this evening, like reminiscing over these Stone Temple Pilot songs, and it was just like one of those kind of cool nights that you don't expect it to be something cool, but yeah, it's something that I still remember that just spending that time with these strangers talking about how great they were and going through all their different songs because Vaseline and like I said, Interstate Love Song, Plush,
Power Girl, which had Buffy in the video, so I call her Buffy, but it was Sarah Michelle Gellar. Was in the video. That was a big deal for us. So yes.
Now my Buffy is the Buffy from the movie, but that was another everything tournament joke. But anyways,
I know. It was funny. I used to have that poster on my wall with Christy Swanson, of course. Now she's a little crazy. But I saw her stuff recently on Twitter. But that was on my wall. I mean, I loved that movie with Luke Perry. It was this fun kind of culty movie. And then I fell in love with the TV show, my favorite shows of all time. But I did like the movie. I liked it. It's a different flavor. It was in the movie and everything. Joss Whedon did a big thing on that, but I liked the movie. I said that poster on my wall. I was a big fan of the film. So
yeah,
it kind of crazy how people turn later. But we don't do politics on here. So another story.
Nope. I try to avoid. Don't follow your Don't learn anything about the people you enjoy, James. That's the first thing I've learned. You got to learn to separate all that or you're going to hate everybody. That's what I've learned.
You're probably right. You're probably smart, Jack. You're probably right about all that. We'll do that. And before we continue it more, I want to bring in the women. I got to talk to women. Groups like Veruca Salt's Seether, which I love.
Oh, Veruca Salt.
Veruca Salt. Remember Veruca Salt? But hello.
Yeah.
Maybe after really fucking anything, but that song, the Seether, was the bomb. Reader's Cannonball. Course. Belly, Tree, L7. They count Garbage as part of it because Butch Vig, who did Nirvana, of course, is part of Garbage. I guess they're grunge. I mean, I'm a huge Shirley Manson fan. I'm trying to see, are they just rock? Alternative rock? I mean,
yeah, I don't know, because you like, as you kind of alluded to earlier, there's definitely that, like, there's grunge, and then there's like alternative that sort of borrowed a bit from grunge, and I don't know where you say that line is drawn, because I think a lot of stuff that just came out in the 90s got lumped into grunge.
Yeah, because when I think of Smashing Pumpkins, their song with the rats in the cage, that to me, that's not
Zero.
That's not grunge to me. That's a rock song.
Yeah.
It is a loud, soft song though. It's loud, soft, loud. I mean, it kind of is, but it's a rock. To me, it's a straight up rock song. And like, even when they put out that Infinite Sadness album, that huge album, Melancholy and Infinite Sadness album, which was huge, to me that was rock and pop.
Yeah,
kind of rock and pop. And was it Tonight? That song, that song,
yeah.
and in 1979, which was very disco, it was very disco-ish. I'm
right.
like, those weren't grunge to me. So I don't.
Yeah, I don't really see them as grunge, because you're right. None of their songs, like, a lot of their songs were even like Today Is the Greatest was kind of like a fun. I like it. It's not very grungy. It's like, it's kind of happy and kind of bubbly, and 1979, and Tonight I really like that song. That video is really cool too.
Yeah, the video's cool. Yeah, the video's good too. Yeah, another good video. Yeah.
By the way, that's based off of like a movie that came out in like ridiculously long time ago, like 1901 or something, like some silly long time ago, and it blew my mind thinking that people were imagining what's like on the moon back then. But anyways, I digress.
That's great. That's great. I didn't realize that. Okay.
It was on Netflix. It's one of those, it's like a 15-minute movie, but like back then that was probably, I mean, it was because it's like crazy old. But anyways, to the women of grunge, I mean, I guess to cover, I like Garbage, so I want to throw them in there. Shirley Manson, she's one of those people, her voice when she talks is much different than when she sings, because she sings and she sounds one way, and then when she talks, she sounds like William Wallace.
She's from another country that has a heavy brogue to her voice. Yes, I understand her half the time, but that's fine. I love her singing.
But I definitely like them. Veruca Salt I like too. What was the other one? Was it Volcano Girls? I think was the other was the other song of theirs that was really big. Seether was big. In fact, another band came out called Seether, named after their song.
They did later. They did. Yes.
And then before we talk about Hole, which is the big one, what was it? There was another. By the way, I googled it. 1902. It looks like is when that movie came out. And it kind of looks similar to what that video looked like. It's worth checking out just for the. It's 12 minutes long. It's worth looking at just to see it's impressive just in like, wow, people in 1902 is obviously zero effects and things. And also back then, before they'd ever been to the moon, or the idea of traveling to the moon seemed like they weren't even flying back then. I don't think so, but
no, they weren't.
And so that's what makes it so impressive. But anyways, again, I digress. There was another girl band in there, right? Before we get to Hole, there was
okay, so I looked at some of these and I was like trying to remember, because there are a bunch of other ones, but again, I looked at some of the lists. They were kind of mixing them up, because I'm like, the Cranberries weren't grunge.
No,
they came out around the same time. They weren't grunge, and there was also, remember, at the same time. Okay, so there are parallel things happening in the 90s. You had grunge, then you had alternative. So a lot of the alternative, like I mentioned REM, when they were having success. The Cure was having some more success. You know, there were Depeche Mode was having second wave success, but they were simply alternative music. They weren't grunge. Then a lot of the women were coming out. You know, Lisa Loeb. So then it was the whole Gen X thing. Because singles came out, now it's a big thing, and Reality Bites came out, now it's a big thing. So it was people like Lisa Loeb, Paula Cole, Sean Coleman, and all these. They all started coming out, and they weren't really grunge. They were Sarah McLachlan. There were all these kind of, Tori Amos, Amy Mann. There were all these singer-songwriter chicks who rocked out, but I don't think they were grunge. So I don't.
Yeah, I definitely think back then there was that kind of latching onto the name because it was popular and because it was selling. And, I think alternative was always such a vague phrasing. Like, it was hard. Like what exactly was alternative? especially as alternative became the mainstream, and which is the opposite of what alternative is supposed to be. As it became mainstream later on in the 90s. But it was, it feels like it was like grunge sort of just started. They started I imagine record labels were like, put grunge on the album cover, or in that slot so that people go buy it, and they say, oh, it's a grunge album, I'll go buy it, because that's just popular.
Because they had, but there's L7. They're kind of grungy. I used to look at Donnas. They were really big in San Francisco. Then they got bigger across the platforms, but they were kind of rock to me too.
What was the Donnas song?
Something Hit Me Off. What was their song?
Oh yeah. Take me go and shake it off, baby, for me.
Shake it off. Thank you. Shake it off. Yeah, shake it off. I used to love it. I used to see San Francisco all the time. They were always playing there. Love them. None of the names were Donna, folks. If you know that, their names were Donna. They just called themselves the Donnas.
Mm-hmm.
But I have several of their albums, and they had a song called "Bitchin'." It was really good. It was very grungy rock. So I mean, I don't know. When I looked up some of the girl names, I'm like, well, I don't think that's grunge. So I didn't name some. I'm thinking there was a girl movement happening at the same time.
Yes.
There was this girl. They were all kind of. Because like I said, and again, it was this Gen X movement that was happening. So it's like the grunge, the alternative, the women, it all kind of became this one nebulous thing where it was kind of like we're all slacker music. That's what it was. It was like we were slackers.
That's probably a good phrase for it. My sister was always really into a lot of the girl rock bands, so like the L7s, and she loved Tori Amos too, and a lot of them. So I heard a lot of them growing up. L7's List song. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. List. The S List. I don't know what I'm allowed to say on the show.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, the whole Little Fair came out of that. The chicks were touring together.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of women who were rocking out.
Oh.
And so that's what. So it's just like, I don't know. Oh, I think Jack froze or I froze. Somebody froze.
Oh,
he was gonna say something and it froze him.
Let's
see if it'll.
Am I back?
Come back, Jack. Come back.
Am I back?
Come back to
us. My phone rang and I think it froze me.
You were smiling. That was so funny. You froze smiling. So
you gotta, when you're doing these, you gotta try your best to always have a face that's okay if things freeze, because you never know when that's gonna happen.
You did get a nice smile the whole time. It was a nice smile. So yes. But I was just saying there was a lot of women. There was a lot of women at the time that were kind of Katie Lang. There's a lot of women who were coming out that were actually singing, songwriting, hitting the charts. I mean, Alanis Morissette came out just guns blazing. So there's a lot of stuff that's there was always other little groups like women like Meredith Brooks, Alana Miles. You have Black Velvet.
Meredith Brooks. That's right.
Meredith Brooks, bitch.
Yeah,
you're a bitch. You're a lover. So there was a bunch of those songs that kind of came out that became anthems, but they're not grunge. They're just that time period. Time period, I guess. So that's kind of the crazy thing. But the Breeders and Belly and all them, because they all had cred from being in Throwing Muses and Sonic Youth, and there were a bunch of sisters who kind of did all these. They all fought with each other. They all kind of put these bands together. I love Cannonball. That was my favorite songs at that time period. I like Cannonball. And Feed the Tree. But they were all part of that. They were all part of the same family. They came from this person, that person, and so they're true grunge artists. And then of course later on they did other stuff. But I guess I'll put Garbage in the group just for the sake of this.
Why not? Why not? Just throw them in there. They did a Bond song too, did they not?
Yes, the world is not enough.
That's a good one too.
And so did Sheryl Crow. Speaking of girls, that time got really big. Sheryl Crow was big that time period too. With everyone said Chains Gonna Do You Good and all those songs. And she did a Bond song too for Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm a huge Bond song person, so that's why I know these.
They have like the movies. I feel like the songs have some peaks and valleys, but I feel like the '90s had some really solid songs to them.
Well, there's a good GoldenEye, My Girl Tina Turner. I mean, there were some good ones. I mean, they made some interesting choices when they went to like Garbage and they went to Sheryl Crow. Like, really? But then the songs came out great. The only song I don't care for of all this James Bond songs, just a little side note, folks, is the Jack White, Alicia Keys song. I know I kind of get what they're trying to do. It's just one of my least favorites. I'm not a huge fan of it.
I get what you're saying. I actually don't mind the song. It doesn't feel like a Bond song though. It feels like just a song as opposed to a like. I feel like one of the quintessential James Bond songs, as far as the sound goes, is like "The World Is Not Enough," where it has that big, grandiose kind of feel to it. Where what was the movie for the Jack White Alicia Keys song? It was like,
was it Casino Royale? Was it Casino Royale? It was
was it
I usually know these. I usually know these.
It just sounded kind of poppy. Like it was like a poppy fun song, but it didn't feel like a James Bond song to me.
No, it didn't. So I'm okay. So James Bond. This is what we do, kids, because I don't want songs. Okay, here we go. Okay. Another Way to Die.
Another Way to Die. Yeah. Yeah, this
for me. This isn't. But see, my mother and I talked this once actually. Hello, Benita, if you're watching. We thought so. Usually they go one of two ways with James Bond songs: kitschy, kind of fun, or they go the old school big band way. And I thought I love Skyfall by Adele, and I love even Billie Eilish's No Time No Time to Die. I love her. I love it. It's a big grand song, but they go the other direction, like The Living Daylights by Aha, or We Were Killed by Duran Duran. Those are all fun poppies, kind of upbeat. I mean, they go one or the other. For Your Eyes Only, that's complete old school, Bond, and the tradition of Goldfinger and Diamonds Are Forever, and you know, or you have the You Only Live Twice by Nancy Sinatra. It's kind of kitschy and kind of You Only Live Twice. I mean, it's kind of they either go one or the other. They always go one or the other. They kind of go. That's why I liked the Tomorrow Never Dies and the World's Not. They were the big numbers. That's kind of I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other story, of course. But I love James Bond. We should do a show on James Bond song.
Yeah, I was about to say none of these are very grungy, but I get.
But the point, I guess, I'll tie back. The point is that a lot of these people, at the same time grunge was happening, a lot of the folks were just alternative or pop rock, and they kind of got lumped in because of the generational thing, I think, because of Gen X, and that's how it happened. And then when the late '90s happened, it broke and became all about the boy band, Spice Girls, all that kind of stuff. And the kids again. But at one point, it was for my generation. It was like, here, 20-somethings, here's your music. Here are your films that go with the music. Here, I mean, it was so much that. And so I guess overall, I'm trying to say that some of these bands, I look them up and they go, they're grunge. I'm like, well, I tend to disagree on some level. They're just popular at the same time. It happened before, the same thing with New Wave and punk, and it was the same thing. It's like, well, it's Blondie New Wave, but I did a disco song. Is this so and that? I mean, there's always blending, I think, and I think influencing, right? You're a DJ too, so you see how some songs come out of some others, and
that's one of my favorite things is seeing how one song influences another. But yeah, I think it's just they just got categorized together with a lot of these. But I think it's underrated, the female movement of the 90s rock, because there's not a whole lot of 90s rock female led groups throughout history, and then you think of how many were in the 90s like that, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, because there was also this the 90s dance music was kind of making a resurgence too, and there were groups like Republica with Ready to Go.
I like that song. Shout it out, baby, exactly. I'm ready to go. Yeah,
I just love that. I was in a band called Mangina back in the.
Of course you were.
Mangina. Hi to my old bandmates. There are about 8 of us. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't make it big or anything. But I wish we could reunite and do something. But we were into that whole dance rock. We liked both because we were rock fans. We were dance fans. So our music was very mixed together. And so Republica was one of our idols. Also used to like Six Underground. That was another song.
Oh, Sneaker Pimps. Yeah.
Sneaker Pimps. They were good too. They were really good. They had a bunch of good stuff. But like that, so that was happening too. And a lot of them were female led. People, they got a Britain. They have a bunch of songs out from there where it's female led. And it's just like there were a lot of female led voices at that same time too. It was like the women in the 90s, there's a lot, and there's a lot of women in the 90s that did very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, and particularly in the rock genre, because like there's a lot of female vocalists and things now, but there's not very many that are the lead of a band per se. I think maybe just because there's a female vocalist, it's so easy to just be a female vocalist as opposed to, like if you're Gwen Stefani, why be the lead singer of No Doubt when you can just be Gwen Stefani?
Right. Like, you're in the band because you like it, I guess, or you're trying to make it, I guess. But then at some point you're like, well, I made it, so I can do my own thing. Bye, bitches. I'll do my own thing.
Right.
Or be like a Pink or Avril Lavigne, where you write your own songs and stuff, but you're Pink, you're Avril Lavigne. You don't.
Right. Yeah, she's not in a group. It's her. Even though she probably plays with the same people all the time, but
right. I'm sure they do. I said, like, the Cranberries is one of the few ones that it was Dolores or Reardon in a group, and that group was, Zombie. I love that song, Zombie, and Linger, of course, all those songs. But like, she was in it. She liked being in a group. I heard that was her thing. She was in a group. But there's so many. Oh my God, there's so many.
Linger is one of those songs that instantly transports me back to the 90s. Just that do. It's like right back to the 90s.
I used to, and then also there's the Cardigans, which I was a big fan of. Love me, say that you love me.
Yeah,
fool me. I used to love it. They had a bunch of great songs. They actually had an album that came out after that called Gran Turismo that their sound was completely different. They're from Sweden. Their sound was completely different, and they had a huge, and it was really good. It was really good. So I'm like, there's, but in the early 90s, there's groups like Roxette that had a female lead singer and things like that. So there was a lot of leads. But I want to say before I get into Hole, as a DJ, I used to mix "Beat It" by Michael Jackson with Nirvana's Spirit.
That's a good one because they both got iconic guitar.
Yes, I used to mix them. I had to find the right spots. I mean, I'm going to go into the whole, you guys don't care about the DJ stuff, but you understand what I'm saying. I had to find the right beats for each one. I couldn't just drop one. I had to make sure this part of Beat It would mix with this part of like Teen Spirit.
Right, you probably had to speed up Teen Spirit. Teen Spirit.
Yeah, had to. Yeah. I don't get to all the the minutia of DJing.
Right.
But I practice. But I'll say this anyway. It's my show. It's our show. We do what we want.
Right.
But I just want to say I practiced. I mean, at home I practiced because I had liked both songs. I thought it was interesting that Nirvana knocked Michael Jackson out of the top spot. I was kind of like, to me, it was symbolic of just like, this is a new era. So like, I wonder if I can mix their songs. I tried Billie Jean, didn't work. It was just, they both were too slow.
Yeah.
Kind of, in the beginning. So I was like, no. And then I was like, Beat It, because Eddie Van Halen, that guitar song, like that's in there. That whole thing. And it worked. I mean, it took me a while. It took me like a few weeks, and I figured it out way to do it. And the crowd would go crazy. They would just go crazy. It was like, because there was two songs you never thought of, you wouldn't think of together, and
right.
It was a lot of fun. So anyway,
that's when my favorite parts about DJing is when you get two songs together and it works, and people are like, oh, the O is the best part of DJing when you make the mix. And it's like, oh, it's like, I love it. I love it. It's my favorite part.
Okay, Hole. So, Courtney Love is very controversial anyway, and over time, many of you guys will know this. She's had her ups and downs. And I remember her glam of the 90s. She became popular. I loved her in People vs. Larry Flint. She was very good in it. Many say it's her acting herself. I don't know about that, but you still, for me, you still have to act. It's hard to act like yourself, people. I'm trying to tell you. I played a character once like that. It was very hard. So I think she did put her effort into it. And I've seen her in she was on Empire not too long ago. She was good on that too. But she was acting. She was the famous Vanity Fair photo shoot where she was all glammed up, the Oscars. But of course, she came back to true form. And I actually met Courtney Love and almost worked for her. One of my early days of organizing, she actually contacted me to organize. We didn't work it out, but we met, and she was actually super sweet. I really have nothing bad to say about her in my experience. She was very nice. She was very self-deprecating. I told her I was a huge fan of her music, of course. I got to see her place, and she had a lot of memorabilia of stuff. And it was like being in the Queen's place for me. I mean, because I was a huge grunge fan. It just didn't work out the way we just couldn't get schedules together. We can work it out, but it was nothing bad. But I'm sure if we saw each other now, if she remembered me, I mean, I'd be fine. I got to meet her, so it's kind of a little Courtney Love story.
Yeah, every person I've heard of who said they've met her that didn't already have like a pre-existing issue has said nice things about her, it seems. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I like her music. I like Hole. I like Celebrity Skin and
Malibu.
Malibu. Yeah, she has great songs. The of course, there's the you know, we were joking around off air before we came on the Yoko Ono of Nirvana, because all the drama that seems to have unfolded would be very interesting if the whole thing happened today, where it feels like we have more insight as to what's actually happening versus, you know, back in the 90s, you only got little snippets of information. If Kurt Loder wasn't telling you on music news you can use, you didn't know. You know what I'm talking about?
Wait. No, you just, I know that you just not go back in time and fucking said, I love it. I love it, Jack. I love it. Yeah.
You can hear the typewriter and the world turns.
I do. Oh my God. You totally said that. Oh my God. I love it. I love it. Yes.
That was like, that was like the only way you got real news, unless it was, you know, like I said, Rolling Stone, in which case it was something that was probably 2 months old because the magazine didn't come out very often. But today it'd be interesting how we would view everything today if we saw it kind of unfolding real time, or there's more information, there's more stories coming out. Of course, as a you know, as a kid, I was very like, I hate her, she ruined Nirvana. Now as an adult, I'm sure it's probably a lot more nuanced than all that. And obviously I think you know, Kurt was probably going through some things himself, and he had some battles. So I think it's unfair to dump anything onto any one person there. But as far as her music goes, I like her. I like her music. I like Hole. I think they have a lot of good songs.
I played Live Through This, their second album, to death. Violet, Doll Parts. I mean, Jennifer's Body. I mean, like, take everything, I want you. I mean, like, there was so much.
Yeah.
So, okay, so part of the controversy of that too, if you remember correctly, was, did Kurt Cobain write some of the songs? And did she? I feel like she had great band members. But she had. I've got the names of the chick and the guy who were in there with her. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that show, she had her own. I mean, they kept looking at her as just the widow, the hanger on, the wife of Kurt Cobain. It's like, why couldn't she be a songwriter and have people with her to write? I mean, I don't understand what that was about, but I remember there's a lot of controversy over that too. But I kept saying, but overall, the albums were good. I mean, she put out good albums. Again, clever songs, talking about great subject matter. Celebrity Skin, another great video too. I love that song. It's like 2 minutes long. It's a quick song, but it's talking about being in Hollywood. It's talking about skin, your beauty, and what that looks like, and selling yourself to the devil. Like, there's some lyrics in there, and she has a very competent voice. Her voice was not bad for that kind of music. It totally worked. Right. But Live Through This, I played that album. My friend and I played it to death. I mean, Time of Death, 1994, 5, 6, 7. I mean, I played it to this day. I still play it. I think it's, I just think it's I think she had some clever stuff, and the music was just plain simply, it was good. The music was simply, it was good.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and she's another one of those artists. You forget that she has so many songs. I go to, like Dull Parts, and then you're like, oh, there's that. But then you're like, yeah, she did have Jennifer's Body and all these other songs that were really great. And as far as, look, I'm sure that Kurt probably helped a little bit with some songwriting, not in some devious way, but I mean, yeah, like they were probably like, hey, I'm writing a song. Can you help me with this line real quick or whatever? Like, that stuff probably happens. And that, I mean, because anyone who, creates or writes or things like that is, like, I'm sure every now and again, even people who are just around, hey, I'm trying to do this. What do you think about this? And they kind of give some feedback or some ideas or what have you, or even just, whatever, you're getting things from people that you're around. So I'm sure that happened to a degree, but she came out with music after he passed away as well. It's not like she totally fell off and disappeared after like, oh, that was the end of her music career. She did have albums that came out afterwards. Now, I mean, she's not making big music today, but I also think a lot of it has to do with the fact that kind of music stopped being popular, Earth, Wind, and Fire still crush, but they're not making music anymore either. Because unfortunately that music wasn't popular for a long time. I feel like they would, if they were younger, they'd crush again if they wanted to play, though. I think.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think a lot of those bands would. I mean, you're right. It's just the music changed. They got a little older, and maybe the desire's gone. Maybe the desire's gone to make new music. Some do make new music, as we know. They continue. Some make new music every 3 or 4 years to put something out, not as frequent as they used to. So it's just a whole different world these days. And now you can do stuff yourself, which I do. I put out music myself. I do it myself. But it's one of those things where the desire, the push to like have a hit album may be gone at this point. So you put out an album once in a while because you feel like it. You got some new songs out of your brain, you do it. But a lot of them, well, not right now, but we're touring and making money that way off their, the legacy tour things they're doing. So, I mean, I hope that can happen again at some point. I miss going to concerts. I miss going to see live stuff. I missed it so much. And back then, one of my regrets is I didn't see Nirvana in concert.
Yeah, I always think that's the best part about seeing bands in live, is more about like, some of these people are legends, like you never know how many times you're going to get to see them. And when I think we'll be having concerts again sooner rather than later. I'm an optimistic person though. I'm like, I think, vaccines out, we're going to get it's going to be taken care of. We're going to be out and about again in no time. I don't know though. I just take it day by day, but I think we'll be having concerts sooner rather than later, because I think we're social people, James. We want to get out. We want to go do stuff. We want to see these people. It's interesting. I was thinking though, like, it's so unfortunate that Kurt Cobain passed away, but what is interesting is I was thinking about is because Nirvana was no more, that obviously allowed Dave Grohl to go on and make like the Foo Fighters. And it makes me wonder, would we have gotten the Foo Fighters had that not happened? Or would all these Foo Fighters songs have been done by Kurt Cobain? Would they have been like, what kind of weird parallel universe would have happened had he lived? If you know what I mean? Like, would we have just not gotten them? Would they have broken up eventually anyways? Because he would have been over it one way or the other. It's an interesting thing. But Dave Grohl has to be one of the most talented musicians around, considering he's been able to do so much.
Great point. Because even with him, he did stuff with Queens of the Stone Age, which I love them too. Very big fan of theirs. He's played with them, did things with them. It's funny because you're right. A lot of these groups spawn other things. So it's kind of like, well, what would have happened if Soundgarden didn't break up and he, of course, stayed in? Would he have done all the different things he did outside of that? Dave Grohl is the largest example of, I'm a big hit band that's been together longer than Nirvana was.
Mm-hmm.
That's longer, had super success. He was the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
Again, on another show that Jack and I did, I talked about the drummers. He was the drummer who went on to be a front man, still drum too, but front man kind of sometimes. But he's a front man of a successful, I guess, rock alternative. People say alternative again, I guess, rock group. And it's had longevity, and it's played with other bands, it's continued. And you're right, it's like, where would that go? Because he started Foo Fighters right after, like maybe 3 or 4 months later, they released their first stuff. And I love Everlong, and all these songs they're so good. I mean, it's just so good. Where would they go? I mean, I'm assuming if you're a songwriter, you have them. Well, so it's the same thing as I remember talking to Stevie Nicks.
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Nicks talks about how she was one of the songwriters of Fleetwood Mac. They had 5 singers and 5 writers, basically.
Yeah.
No, just goes, I had this whole book of songs that were just sitting there. So she went solo. They were mad at first. They're like, Bitch, what are you doing? They were sad. But she was like, no, I'll stay in the group. I'll still be in the group, but I just want to get my songs out. Well, of course, she went huge. But she did stay in the group. She still toured. Well, did tour with them. Still toured with them. But the point was, she had always like, so I wonder if people like that, they had all these songs. They're just kind of like, you keep writing and go, well, one day maybe they'll make it in the band. Or how many do not make it in the band? You present them, which ones don't? Would any of those hits that later became Foo Fighters, would they be a Nirvana hit? Even though the music was so different. Yeah. Nirvana and Foo Fighters are very different. Right. So I wonder, and if Nirvana had stayed going, would they have evolved? Most bands evolve, they change. Would they evolve into that sound so much would have Dave sung lead on a few songs. There are groups. Here's a couple of trivia questions for you guys out there, answers for you out there. The Cars are mostly Rick Ocasek.
Mm-hmm.
But two of their biggest hits were sang by Benjamin Orr. Drive was one of them. That song was that video, again, iconic video MTV.
Right.
But that was sung by Benjamin Orr. Heart. None of your Seattle folks, Northwest folks, love them. Normally, it's Ann Wilson. These Dreams, their number one hit, was sung by Nancy. So it's like, so every once in a while, they would let another person sing, like they're throwing on the album, you sing that song, you sing whatever. Sometimes they become hits. So I wonder if Dave Grohl could have become a secondary singer of some sort in Nirvana at some point as they continue putting out albums. I just wonder. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's because I mean he's so talented. I've heard from interviews that Kurt Cobain was definitely like, this is my band. So I don't know, maybe he would have said no, but at the same time, I mean, Dave Grohl's talented. Of course, Dave Grohl, he seems also like one of those guys that's very easily seems like he has no problem going, okay, well, I'm just gonna play with this other band for a little bit, like Queens of the Stone Age, as you mentioned. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go do this for a little bit. I think he played with I want to say like Blink-182 for a little bit when Travis Barker got hurt.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite stories about Foo Fighters is they asked him why they chose the name Foo Fighters, and Dave Grohl said he didn't think they were going to be around that long, so they just picked something. And so he said if they knew, if
he knew what you wish for,
yeah, he said if he knew they were going to be around this long, he would have picked something better. But they're just like, whatever, we're just going to make one album. Who cares?
And you see how that turned out, Dave. You gotta be careful. No, I love Foo Fighters. They're one of my favorites, and I say Queens of the Stone Age is one of my favorites too. But that all comes out of the greatness. And like I said, we wouldn't have had Audio Slave, which was several members of different groups together, from those grunge eras, or Velvet Revolver. There's a lot of things that, like, what were those songs would they have come up? Would they have happened? Would they not have happened? I love the what ifs. That's very fascinating.
Yeah, or would we have just different songs? I don't know. It's interesting, but I always wonder too, like, would the impact of those bands have been as strong had they survived? Because I know it's tragic in a way, but I think it's fair to say we look at artists who've passed away with a lot better I guess rose-colored glasses. You look at like a Nirvana or a Tupac or a Biggie or all the people who had someone pass, even like Sublime, like blew up after their lead singer passed away. Even as we talked about earlier, the B-Girl song, Blind Melon, like that singer died as soon as that song came out, and it was huge for a long time. So it'd be interesting. I wonder if we would still look at them the same, or would they become kind of, I like Snoop Dogg, but he's kind of become a bit of he's kind of a silly person instead of the gangster that we used to know him as.
Well, been declawed.
Yeah, like we don't look at him the same. I wonder if we would start looking at him differently, because now even a lot of his more gangster stuff from the 90s is more like, but it's Snoop. It doesn't have that same feel to it. So I wonder if we would look back on it and be like, oh yeah, it's just old Kurt. He's just being silly with his silly music. You know what I mean? It's weird. We'll never know, but just that perspective is very interesting.
People always ask me if he hadn't died so soon, would Nirvana be revered as they are? And I said, that's an interesting question. I said, I feel like, number one, they were huge. So there wasn't like they got huge later. They were huge in their time period.
Mm-hmm.
They were the media darlings in their time period. So I think their reverence would have happened anyway. It did get immortalized when Kurt died. The band had to stop. I mean, it did get immortalized. And we saw the infighting with Kurt, with Dave and Courtney. They fight back and forth. They make up. They fight and make up. I mean, it's rock star stuff, whatever, right? And stuff. And so I think on some level they still would have been highly regarded if he hadn't died. But I think because he did, it did help, like you just say, immortalize him. I mean, Michael Jackson was around for like 40 years. So yes, when he died, it was a big deal. Prince, same thing. Those were David Bowie, same thing. Those we get. But you're right, the ones that died are like an Amy Winehouse. I mean, her students, again, she was big in her time. She was revered critically acclaimed in her time, but she did die early. So that does kind of go, well, maybe she is larger than she might have been. I don't know.
Right. Well, the tragic artist story is always a fascinating one. But you're right. I think when going back to grunge and Nirvana, he was already the biggest star of that genre, and that genre is pretty cemented in the 90s. So even if it was always just that he was the biggest star of an old genre, he probably would have been still a big star. It does seem like after he passed away, though, that was when grunge started sort of declining off. Though I wonder if that grunge would have continued on, or if it, would we have gotten Creed if
I wish we got the story.
I don't
know. I'm gonna answer your question. I think, in my opinion, Jack Farmer, I think it would have died off anyway because it was for a generation and we were getting older.
Right. I agree. I think that's fair.
By the end of the 90s, most of us were ending our 30s. So we weren't slackers anymore. We weren't like trying to find ourselves. We were, by then we found ourselves by then.
You were yuppies at that point. You weren't slackers, you were yuppies.
Exactly. But we had moved on by then. So I mean, I think it was about our kid. We had kids. A lot of us had kids by then. So now it's about, that's why I think that the teen and Disney movie came at the right time right then, because we all had kids. My daughter loved Spice Girls, so did I. We loved them together. So it's like,
right.
So I think a lot of us started to grow up. It was like we weren't just laying around anymore on our couches and flannels. It was like, so I think the music would have died off on some level. I would have had to adjust. It would have just became rock. I think that's
fair.
I think it's the only one. Because I mean, I look at like Pearl Jam and them, they still put out albums in the 2000s, and many of them did sell well, but they weren't really grungy anymore. They were just kind of like, they were Pearl Jam. They were recognized as somebody, and they did albums with Neil Young and they did all this kind of stuff. They started to move around. So I mean, so I think it would have morphed out of that because again, grunge was associated with the youth. I mean, it kind of, so to speak. I think that. So I think it would have. So I think to answer your question, I kind of, as a person who was that age group, I wasn't wearing flannels anymore. I mean, I was coming out of it myself. And Doc Martens. I mean, I did when I was younger. I loved them.
Which is fair because, I guess when you're in your 20s, if you're slacking around, it's cool. But when you're in your 30s and up, it's kind of just sad.
Not cute anymore. Not cute anymore. Not cute.
It becomes like, oh, you're the deadbeat uncle or whatever. That isn't doing anything with their life.
Exactly. It's not fun anymore.
That table turns very quickly.
It sure does. It sure does. I know. We both know it. It does happen. We're like, oh, okay, that's different. Now I have to be a grown up. Got it.
Right.
Yes, it's not cute anymore. So so that's a great question to pose. I personally think just from that time period, we were growing out of it anyway, and it just became something else. And a lot of genres, they do that. It's kind of, there's a few that stay around, but a lot of these other specialty ones, even the conscious rap around the 90s, they started dying around. The gangster rap came out and they killed that. And so it's like, it's just people's taste started to change as the country started to change. And I think that's what happened. And then 2000s, it was the rock rap stuff. I mean, it was Linkin Park, it was Evanescence, it was all these groups that were, and Korn and all that. They were mixing up, the stuff all together. Right. So, and Limp Bizkit and all them. So it started to change. It's like the taste started to change. And then next generation started to come, the millennials started coming up basically. They started coming up.
Yeah.
And dictating what's played on the, that's what it is. What's played on the radio is dictated by, certain groups.
I think that's a good point. It does feel like the second half of the 90s, it was sort of like we knew musically, we all knew what we were up through the mid 90s. And then the second half of the 90s, it felt like we were all kind of figuring out what we were trying to be, like with that, rap metal and everything else that you mentioned. And then it felt like, I always feel like big moments are catalysts to like big changes and in that kind of stuff. And it feels like after 9/11, I always say that I feel like I always say the 90s ended on 9/11. It didn't end, December 31st, 1999. I feel like they actually ended then. I kind of feel like with quarantine and regardless of who people vote for president, I feel like with a new president and things like that, I feel like this is kind of one of those things. My prediction is we've had a lot of slower music for a few years, and now more fast-paced music and more danceable music is coming out again. Like Dua Lipa's coming out with dancey kind of stuff. My prediction is we're going to get a lot of really upbeat, fun stuff as we, as a country kind of find ourselves again and get out of this sort of depressing 2020 and get into something more fun again. I predict that we'll have Bruno Mars albums coming out this year. I predict that we'll have Pharrell albums coming out this year, and Rihanna again. They haven't come out with stuff in a long time, by the way. So I feel like they're all going to start coming out with more upbeat, fun stuff. And it's going to be one of those shifts similar to the end of the 90s when things sort of shifted again. And we went from, Korn into Beyonce. We went from Backstreet Boys into Lil Jon, and I think we're going to see a little bit of that sort of switch here in the next year or two. That's my prediction.
I have a question for you though, but how do you feel about rock? Because rock isn't as big as it used to be.
Rock's almost dead. Unfortunately, I love rock, but I was actually just looking at for fun. I was going back and I was like the top musical acts of 2001 and comparing it to the top musical acts of today. And it's interesting how there's like no bands really in the top musical acts of today. Nope. And I don't know. I think I hope rock comes back. I just think it's so easy for an individual to just do everything themselves instead of working with someone else, like, going into a garage. And I always feel like that's one of the things I hate about like American Idol and The Voice and things. It's kind of taught the world that the way you become a musician is you go and you audition and you hope some judges pick you. Instead of, hey, we're just going to go in a garage and be really loud for, every single day for the next year. Right. And then maybe we'll get a gig at a bar or, something like that. And I think I think it's also easier for people to just kind of put songs together themselves instead of being like, man, my buddy Toby doesn't want to play this song, but I'm going to make it myself and do it, on my own. I hope that changes. I hope after quarantine, we all want to get together again and people are like, no, I don't want to make music by myself. I want to go rock out in a garage and wake up the neighbors, I hope so. Cause like I said, I love rock, but I feel like there's a lot of producers and record companies out there that it's just cheaper to have one person be a star than it is to have five.
Yeah, it's but for me, let's say good predictions, Jack. I grew up with rock music. My mother was a hippie, and so a true hippie, and so I grew up with all kinds of music. But she played a lot of Bob Dylan and Donovan and Russell Nash and Young, and a lot of Rolling Stones and the Beatles, and a lot of the Monkees, everybody, all this stuff. Led Zeppelin. She played the gamut. That's my point. She played the gamut of rock music, and so I love it. I have an affinity for it. I grew up with Kiss and Queen and all these groups. I literally grew up with these groups playing their music all the time, and I like rock. I do. I go to a lot of rock concerts, and I was a heavy metal fan. I was a hair band fan. I went to a lot of those concerts, and from Motley Crue to everybody, to Warrant. I do all those guys, and I was a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. Saw them 5 times over the years. I'm a huge fan of theirs.
Yeah.
So I do, and I have friends who played in rock bands, and I was in a rock dance group. I haven't done any rock song. I haven't done any rock songs so far actually in my career. I've always done dance and pop, and nothing better than rock. But I like rock music. That's my whole point. I like rock music, and I don't want it to die. I don't want. I know Bruce Springsteen comes out with stuff every once in a while, but it's like it's not. It's just like he's
can't keep counting on Bruce.
No, he can't.
I love Bruce, but
I miss that. Remember there was that resurgence that it was like there was the Strokes and the White Stripes and the Jet and Franz Ferdinand and all these groups. They were all coming out, and they were all putting out this great, fun rock music that had. I love Arctic Monkeys. I love there's all these groups I love. There were rock groups, and they had their hits, and then that was it. It's like then it went down just like. So is it really just, and again, no offense to hip hop or country or whatever. I like those too, but I'm so sad. Oh, you guys agree with me? Thank you. I'm just so sad that there isn't a good old fashioned rock song. Give me a good old guitar riff, some good heavy drums, and a voice screaming at me. I'm like, where is that?
Yeah, it's I agree. Like I said, I loved rock music. That's what I grew up on primarily. My family was really into rock music, and we were kind of one of those interesting families where we all kind of went different directions with the rock music we liked. So I got to hear a lot of different music that way. But I hope so. I hope it does, because you're right. I felt like that was like kind of like the as you mentioned, Jet, and it felt that felt like that was sort of like the last gasp of rock music. There's still some bands out there I know.
I know.
I think Panic at the Disco had a album recently. But even then they lean so heavy pop for me. I feel like
the Killers,
right.
Fall Out Boy, they're very poppy at this point. Even Fall Out Boy had a couple of songs on the dance charts. I mean, like they're not. I'm talking about you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about some hard, crotchless, sweaty, dirty,
some buttless chap rock.
Exactly. I miss it. I mean, seriously, I do.
Right.
I miss this like down home, just screaming in the microphone, giving it to me. I mean, like I ran into Henry Rollins a couple of years ago.
Interesting.
I loved Black Flag, and I loved him also solo and his stuff. And he's a very smart guy. But I ran into him at Las Vegas airport once, and we actually ended up talking to each other. And he was a very cool guy. And I was just like, I like those kind. I like that kind of guy fronting a band. Just like giving it to me. I mean, just giving it to me. I mean, I missed it.
That sort of like, I always think of like the guitar player just like going off onto a riff and the drummer just going nuts on the drums and the singer just like yelling, and the energy that is there when you have a full band together. But it's not just a singer and then their touring band, but like I know it's the hair metal, but it's like I love like the Axl Rose singing, but then you got Slash over there with the cool hat, or like you got Flea, or if we're talking Red Hot Chili Peppers, and just like there's just an energy to it, and that feeling of like we're just gonna keep playing as long until they turn the lights off on us, and like we're just gonna rage, and we're just gonna go hard, and we're just gonna I mean, I agree. I miss that. I wish there was a lot more artists like that making bands getting together. And hopefully there is again soon. Because I love it, but I tell you, that's a K-Rock here in LA. They've been changing their format because there's just not enough rock music coming out. I don't know if you've followed that kind of stuff.
No, I was so funny. I'm so glad you brought. I have not listened to K-Rock in years. Now, of course, growing up in LA, that's one of the things to listen to. So what are they playing? Like
they're starting to play more like Post Malone and stuff, because it's literally been a change. That I was reading an article on it, how they only had there's 93 songs that they could play that fit what their brand was, and it was like counting old music and new music, and so if you listen which 93 songs, when I say that, it sounds like a lot, but when you're playing music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you go through 93 songs very quickly. I mean, if I'm DJing a 4-hour set, I'm going to go through like 100 songs. I'm not playing the full song, I guess, but like, if you assume that, let's say each song is 3 minutes, and 3 times 100, 300 minutes, that's only a few hours of music, and so they had to they said we have to start bringing in new stuff, otherwise we're just playing, you can only play the Killers so many times for people like, oh yeah, you're playing the Killers again, oh yeah, you're playing this song again. So they started bringing in new stuff, which is a shame, but what are you gonna do?
Okay, so I'm looking at the Billboard charts right now.
It's gonna be full of rock bands, and we're gonna look like fools.
No, Jack. So this is the Hard Rock Digital Song sales for the week of this week. The number one song is "Thunderstruck" by AC/DC. Been on charts 424 weeks. The number 2.
Thunderstruck's been number 1 for 400 weeks.
No, it was number 2 last week, but it's been on the charts 400.
Oh,
404 weeks. I'm trying to get to. Why did it go away?
That sounds like it's been number 1 since like it was in Iron Man.
It came out. Let's see. because I was kind of curious to see what to see. And like, why is it doing that? Oh my God, let me see it. Okay, well, I won't let me see it. Oh my God, I don't want to sign in. Let's see. I was really curious. I was like curious about that. I was curious if there's any new bands on here. They have the Hot 100. I mean, the Hot 100 is like 200 global 200 view chart.
Spin magazine. Let's see. It has top 5.
Oh yeah, go there too. Yes.
Good and Gather is an easy way to.
Is that me?
That's me.
No. Okay. I don't know the Voids. I don't know that Bad Moves, Body Count.
So you don't even know.
It's starting at 50 though. Let me scroll all the way to the bottom real quick.
I don't even know who they are.
I guess Vampire Weekend's at number 31. I've heard of them.
We heard them. Okay, but then I even knew they've been around for a while. I even knew.
Yeah. Let's see here. So it's one of those ones I got to hit. I got to hit the next. They're trying to get me to click the next button.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so like.
You know how that goes. So the top 10. Let's see. It's loading here. We've got Pup from Ontario. I don't know who Pup is. Charlie Bliss. Torso. X.
No.
Dog Leg. Cloud Rat. Chubby and the Gang. These sound like fake names.
I know. I was like, I don't even know any of those people. I don't know any of them, Jack.
Okay. Paramore is number 3.
Okay, Paramore, I like them.
Control Top and Haim.
Oh no, Haim, the Three Sisters.
Yeah. So, but none of those are ones that like jump out at you as wow, like I don't know. I always say I feel like the last real true rock band was Foo Fighters. I feel like when I say true rock band, I mean like could they sell out Madison Square Garden and have like a massive show? And I don't know. I mean, maybe Killers could do it.
I'll say Killers, maybe Paramore. I forgot about Paramore. They were big. Yeah. Paramore could have been maybe possibly. They had a lot of hits. They had a lot of hits.
Yeah.
Possibly. I forgot about them.
But there's not a whole lot of bands. I'm like, maybe just because I feel like Dave Grohl is like the quintessential rock star. So I like it. But I don't know. I hope people get back into the garage. I always say get back in the garage and make noise because that's what I feel like the classic band does.
I know what you mean. And I do have friends, and there are people out there who are making rock music that's not popular.
Yeah.
There are some, and I have friends who are putting out some great music that just, they're doing their best to get out there. But I miss the days of big rock bands making big noise with big music and getting in the charts and getting in the consciousness. And I don't know. So maybe once again they always say rock. They always declare rock dead every 20-some years or so, and it never really dies. So it always comes back somehow.
Right. That's every genre, really. I mean, they say disco's dead, and then Levitate by Dua Lipa sounds like a disco song.
Right. Well, EDM came out. That's a whole. Well, we'll do a show. We'll do a show on dance.
Yes.
I think we got to do. We should do. You're a DJ. We should do a show. We'll do a show on dance. Okay. Yeah. So, folks, that is our show today for Grunge. We talked to you guys ear off for an hour and a half. But I love grunge, and like I said, it's a time period for me that has personal resonance. Mm-hmm. Oh, hi, Kate. We're about to end the show, Kate. I'm here. We're ending the show. Dang it. But watch it. It'll be up forever. So hi there. Really cute. Okay. So, but yeah. So we love grunge. It's part of my personal history. It's because it was my time period in life. So I'll always have a soft spot for it. I still play some of the bands to this day. I saw many of them in concert back in their heyday. So I was very happy to do that, except for Nirvana. Right, let's see. Jack Farmer, tell them where they can find you on the social interwebs.
You can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. I am also doing all sorts of shows like this one, so make sure to check that out. And you can follow me on social media on Twitter, and you'll find me on all my shows as well. And while you're doing that, go to realjackfarmer.threadless.com, support the homie, and buy a shirt.
That's right, kids. Buy a shirt. I got to support you and buy one. Okay, and you follow me. We're all James Lott Jr. is sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms. I have a new song coming out February 16th, and it's called, oh my God, what's it called? It's called, excuse me, I got so many things happening. Oh, I Will Have It All. Mm-hmm. And it's my group, The Third Dimension, and my friend Keone Alley. We all do it together. It's a great big dance pop number That'll be out February 16th. I'm about to announce it actually tonight. I haven't announced it yet, so I'm about to announce it tonight. And you can go to my SoundCloud page, listen to my Darth Vader song. You can download it for free. It's called I Am Your Father, Darth Song. And you can go there and listen to it. It's a dance song about Darth Vader. Why not? Right, Jack? Why not?
Yeah, why not?
What
else are you doing?
Well, now I'm encouraged to do a rock song now. I should do a rock song. Get my old friends to do a rock song. I should do a rock song. And of course, I have all of my media shows are out on JLJ Media, which is on YouTube, my online channel. Shows like this, plus many more. We're back next week doing country pop songs. Then a couple weeks we're doing love songs for Valentine's Day week. But I'm gonna add. We're gonna talk after camera. We're gonna add a dance one. We didn't put a dance thing on there. We should do a dance. Hello.
Yeah, why not?
That's like DJ stuff. But yes, I'm doing a bunch of stuff, and also on audio streaming services. Listen to Claus' series. New episode came out today. And Jack is actually on the series. I'll be coming up shortly with that too. So he plays Sawyer. He's on there.
In my voice acting debut. I've never done it before. I have to admit, I feel like I am probably the greatest voice actor of our generation, if I do say so.
You know what, Jack? I will say yes because I say I discovered you. So yes, the best voice. See, that's back to me now, Jack.
Yeah.
The best voice. I discovered the best voice actor of our generation, sitting right there, Jack. Sorry, Jay Hutcher did that.
Yes, we both win.
You can't you can't out-pro a pro. Or so, I don't know. We're both similar. So I just been around a lot longer. That's all. Everybody, thanks for watching us. And we're back next Monday at 3 p.m. doing this again. Everybody take care, be safe out there, and listen to some music. Listen to some of the songs we talked about. Comment and tell us what you think. And anybody in chat room. Thank you, everybody in chat room for coming in.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry you came in so late. We're on at 3 o'clock. So at 3 o'clock on Mondays, we'll be next couple Mondays we'll be on. So come on a little earlier. Sorry, come on late. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.